Well, hello, folks. I'm L.A. Little, and this is your daily NeoTA wrap. We take a look at these markets, and we do it from a neoclassical perspective. Each time we ask ourselves what happened today, and what does it tell us about the coming ones. I do the show 4 times a week, every Monday through Thursday, broadcast at or before 10 o'clock Eastern Time, archived on YouTube. It's under the channel L.A. Little. You can catch me there anytime, any device, whatever fits your needs. It's a good place to catch me. I don't have any questions tonight, so tonight I'm going to spend a little bit more time doing some other things. Come over to NeoTA TV, which is a link back to what you're watching now, but down here where you can get a hold of me, where you can send text messages or emails asking questions, just like we had a good question last night. It had to do with how volumes work, at the tops and bottoms, and what I say about we're going to go back and test something and why. Any of those kinds of questions, if I can impart some of that knowledge, makes you a better trader, that's great. I mean, that's part of this whole process here. Markets, what did they do today? Well, last night we were talking about they could bounce at any time. They tried, but they didn't get very far. But we did have some mixed signals on the indexes, and that tells me one more time that we're getting very close to something that's going to be sustainable to the upside. And what I mean by that is, I've been talking quite a bit about, the need for some outperformance in a couple of the indexes, in particular the composite and the Russell. Well, the Russell 2 days running now is totally outperforming the others. Of course, it's down much farther than everything else, so you would think that it would, and it should be the first to try to turn and bounce. Now we got the composite today, a little bit of outperformance on it, just like we saw in the Russell yesterday. So I'm looking at those two, and I'm saying, hey, that's 2 of the 3 signals I was looking for. The third one still has not happened, and we'll talk about that one here in a bit. So anyway, the index has got a little bit of a bounce, still closed negative on the Dow. You had inside days on some of the others, but you actually did something on the indexes that's also a positive. Elsewhere, some, just kind of sideways trading. Oil, that's that third one we were talking about. That one totally collapsed today. It was down 4.5% at one point, down 114 here on the ETF. Let me see where it finished up on the day in the futures. It was down, well, they've reset at this point. I can't see. I think it was down a little over 4%. Dollar up 0.5%, and that's another thing we need to talk about tonight. So, rounding out the numbers, not too bad, but really didn't get that kind of move that we were thinking we should get, at least not yet. Let's pop over to the indexes and take a look at some of these and see, what they're telling us. So if we start with the S&P 500, we go under, back over, but we have more volume. So that says it's probably going to test it again tomorrow, right? Still can't get over it. And if you look at the Dow actually stayed under it and closed lower, so that also is saying the same thing. So the 2 listed issues both saying the same thing, that is that they want to test lower again. And this is where the mixed signals come in. Those 2 telling you that, but then if you walk over to the NASDAQ composite and you look at it, that low yesterday, 42.1287, you just underclipped it today, 42.1282 by a nickel. Less volume, under, back over. It is an inside day, but it did test lower with no volume. That suggests that it wants to try to bounce. That's also that outperformance we were just talking about. NDX, same thing. Under, back over, less volume, also wants to try to bounce. Now, the bad part about both of these signals, is that both of them showed terrible candles as part of doing that. So, it's a small caveat. It doesn't invalidate it. It's just, you'd like it to be a better candle than what you see there. So those 2, and then of course the Russell also trades higher. less volume. The bad thing here, and again, mixed signals again, the bad thing here is it gets over the big down day, the October 10 day. That was Friday. Top of that was 1074.25. You get over it, 1075.25 or a little bit more. Back underneath it, less volume. That's a negative. That says the Russell wants to try to test down now. So Russell probably not going to outperform tomorrow. You got the listed issues trying to trade lower again, and the flip side of that is you got the NASDAQ NDX trying to trade higher. So as I said at the outset, some mixed signals. If I look at the sectors, no relief. And well, let's go straight to oil sector, the OIH, the XLE. And because that's where the damage continues to happen. XLE, another lower low, continues to expand. You know, volume is just coming out of these things. 50, you know, what is this? 56 million, 60 and a half, 47. I mean, it just bleeds lower, and the volumes are huge. A lot of money coming out of these. And they had made a huge run, so I guess, you know, there's a lot of money to come out of these. And, you know, when they pull the plug, everybody tries to fit through the pinhole, and it usually doesn't work very well, and that's what you're seeing here. This sell-off is straight down, 197. We're trading at 80. So you've lost $20 off of 100, roughly. Not even quite 100, right? Well, yeah, 100. So you've lost basically 20 bucks off 100. If I do the math there, that sounds like 20% to me. And it's pretty much straight away, 2 months. Elsewhere, you're starting to see some deterioration in other places like the biotechs. And this is starting to feed selling in the healthcare sector, which we'll look at here in a second. Biotechs bleed lower, volume expands, can't hold the first retest, regen bullish after way more than 6 bars. That tells you how negative it is, because that's like an 82%. It should hold. Didn't hold. So you can see the kind of pressure being applied right across the board. Now, one bright spot tomorrow potentially is the SOX. You know, the SOX, just like the oil sector, is sold off precipitously. 90 down to 70. Well, we closed today at 76. So you lost, what is that, 14 bucks off 90. I can't do that math. It's not as easy, but it sounds like about 18% or so, 17%. So, you know, pretty fast gallop to the downside, and that all happened in 3 weeks. But Intel came out after the bell, and we'll look at its earnings a little bit later, but Intel, you know, not only did it hit its earnings, which it should have, because it's been telling us recently that it would, and a matter of fact, got a big bump this year as a result of it. It's up like 20, 22, 23% this year. But hitting the numbers really isn't the question. Is can you raise them? And they did. And we'll look at their chart here and how they closed after hours. But that should, to some degree, stabilize that sector. And if I flip on through here, you know, you're not going to see much positive anywhere. The one positive is XLU attacking the highs with volume. This is a safety sector, pays big dividends. It's a place that people run and hide when things get tough, and that's exactly what they're doing. So sectors don't look like they're going to help much. So you got mixed indexes, tough sectors. Overseas doesn't look like it's going to help very much either. Potentially Europe will. That's the only one that looks like it really wants to bounce. So in Europe, you got a situation where you may get a nice bounce there tomorrow. If so, that could lead our markets to gap up versus down. I was talking to the members today and thinking that if we had some earnings bad after the bell, because we had Intel and LLTC, that we may see you know, a spike down in the morning, a gap down, because we closed near the lows again. But you know, maybe Europe and maybe Intel will keep that from happening and give the bulls some hope. If I flip over right quick here to the OX sectors, I want to show you the dollar. Dollar looks to me like it's fixing to try to go back up and test again. That test is this breakdown bar and the bottom of the bar prior to it. That's where the test is. It looks like it's going to try to bump back up there. We'll see if it can get up there. But if it does, it's going to put pressure on all commodities, and we don't really need to look at a commodity like the USO and think it's going to go down farther. I mean, this thing down huge already, 25% or so itself. If I look at gold and silver, they're just barely hanging on. And I see a big flight to quality still. TLT, money flying to it. Municipal bonds, money flying to them. High quality corporate bonds, money going to those. The only ones that aren't getting it on the bonds is the junk bonds. There's the utilities, they're getting the money. Here's the junk bonds. Junk bonds can't get going. So we've got, right across, and it's interesting because it's right across the bonds too. It's every one of them, all maturities. They're all moving in tandem straight up, 3 to 7, 7 to 10s, and even the 1 to 3, which you saw as we came on the show here, all of them making new highs and spiking higher. So in summary, this market, mixed signals, sector's bad, maybe get some help from Europe. Nothing on the bond front or anything telling us it's over yet. If we do gap down tomorrow, you're probably going to see a big washout. If we don't, and they somehow hold in here, I think it's just prolonging the inevitable, and that is that at some point here, these things look like they're going to try to break even lower. So if you're still hanging on to stuff or you're way invested, too long, I think it's going to get a little bit more painful before it gets much better. Even the bounce here, they can't hold them. This is 2 days running, they couldn't hold them. Okay, so let's spend a little bit of time here. I want to look at some of the earnings that came out after the bell. Let me flip over because I'm curious as to what they look like and what they're showing us. So let me scoot over to that screen. And let's just pop through some of these and see what they look like. So J&J was out this morning. So Johnson & Johnson, well, they didn't exactly embrace those, did they? Volume comes out of them. Let's see what it looks like on a weekly. And it breaks a swing point low. It's got big volume there, and it held. So it looks to me like it's probably going to hold right in here and just kind of gyrate for a while. That's a big weighting in the Dow, so one of the larger weightings in the Dow. So that was part of the issue in the Dow today, probably. JP Morgan also came out today. This is the weekly. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad. Let's see what the daily look like. They had a big write-off again, more legal expenses. So they started lower, finished higher, and that's a good sign for those. So they did push lower with volume, though. So this just looks like a big range trade. You kind of got two, it looks to me like two big ranges here. You got the one at the top and the one at the bottom. And this is playing right back up into this area, going to try to get back into the top range. I suspect it's going to trade this range for a while, given the way that chart looks. Wells Fargo was another one that came out today. Wells Fargo sells off. I didn't get a chance to look at their numbers yet. Let's see what they look like on a weekly. Break swing point lows, volume, and just like Johnson & Johnson coming into a big bar here. Okay, so this is Tuesday, so they're doing 54 coming into 122, so they'll have the volume if the volume continues at this pace to press on down. So they're breaking multiple swing point lows, multiple time frames, and potentially volume expansion on the weekly. All bad signs. Citigroup's another one that came out today. So these were the three big earnings. I didn't show you the XLF, but it really didn't do anything for it. So 2 out of the 3 actually got a decent bounce. So not too bad, but the XLF, if you looked at it, really couldn't do anything. Pushes up, back down, has more volume. This looks to try to test lower again tomorrow as well. Intel. So Intel comes out after the bell. They were up, let's see what they were up here. 4.8%, buck 51 closes at 32.98 after the bell. So 32.98 is into this bar. So this is going to be the bar tomorrow. You know, if Intel can get back over this bar, right, then it can go attack these highs again. But folks, if it fells this bar on good earnings, that's a very negative sign. So tomorrow, this is definitely one you should be watching. They're going to probably get enough expansion on volume to get up and over it. But if they can't get over this and close over tomorrow, that bottom is probably going to get tested pronto. LLTC, let's see what they did. They came out after the bell as well, and they closed down 49 cents, so 1%. 38.32 was the close, and they're testing the lows tomorrow. So again, just like Intel, this will be a big test tomorrow. Can they test under it with lighter volume, stay over it? CSX shipping, I believe this is one of the yeah, so they had a pretty good spike up. Boy, even good numbers, you can't hardly hold it, but that looks pretty good actually on the chart, not bad. CQB, let's see, this is a food, Chiquita Brands. This was a takeover, so not really anything to talk about here. The chart doesn't mean anything. Ozark, Bank of the Ozarks, they came out after the bell, or they probably came out this morning actually. They were up a little bit. That's not going anywhere. It's going to come down more again. Surgical, let's see what these guys did. So, not Surgical, but Synergetics. Nice chart. Not much volume here. Not worth talking about. It's just not enough volume to deal with it. And let me see. HCSG was another one I saw. This is a commercial services, and that's not doing anything either. So, the big numbers, to me, is do those banks hold on to the gains, because tomorrow you got some more, right? Because the first week is a lot of banks. Does Intel get over that high and stay over at that big bar, or is it captured inside of it? Because if it's captured inside, then that becomes the range that it's going to play out in, and which isn't going to help the chips much. And conversely, on the other side, can LLTC hold those lows? Those will be all the things happening on the earnings front. So in a nutshell here, it looks to me like we could get more pressure. You're starting to see kind of what needs to happen to get a decent bounce, but there's still nothing out here that tells me we're going to get it tomorrow. Looks like more testing. Now we got a lot of numbers coming up later this week. Tomorrow you got, let's take a look at some of these, see what they look like. So American Express in the morning. This doesn't look very good. That doesn't actually excite me. And it's under all the swing point lows. This one looks like it wants to go even lower. Maybe they'll surprise to the upside. BLK. So BlackRock's coming in. BlackRock has a lot of support in there, so I'd be surprised if BlackRock crashes. STJ, which is St. Jude Medical, and that's got some decent volume here, but that's an ABCD structure to the downside. As we're coming into earnings, that's typically not what you want to be in. It's going to try to take out these lows, so that one doesn't excite me either. Bank of America is another one. Let's see what its chart looks like. That one looks like it's already ran up into earnings. You see what the daily looks like. Oops. Hang on, let me grab a symbol so I can get back to it. BAC on the daily. Yeah, that doesn't look like that one's going to do much either. How about Schwab? Let's see what Schwab looks like. SCHW. Ooh, now they got hit good, like most others. Yeah, this is going to try to get back into the top of this bar, 23.93. So that also looks like it's going to have a hard time tomorrow. So I don't see anything out here that, in the morning that's going to make a big difference on the positive side. Key Corp also testing the lows on a weekly, and more volume today as it goes under back over, so that doesn't do anything either. After the bell tomorrow, there's going to be a few others. I believe these are after the bell. I think Netflix is. I didn't look it up. Let's see. This is one of the high flyers. Well, they better come out with some good earnings because they're set up to fall too. That one looks like a tough chart. eBay's another one. Carl Icahn got his way with these guys just like he did Apple. And it didn't matter. They just sell off. So let's see. Weekly. Yeah, tough trade. They could get a bounce, but I don't think they're going to get much more than that. Okay, well, looks pretty tough to me. We'll leave it at that. Until next time, thanks for joining me. Take care. I'll see you then.